Hello, my name is Angelo Lopez. I'm a Filipino American editorial cartoonist based in the San Francisco Bay Area. And today I'm honored to be speaking with Stephen Rockwell. Now, Steve, you want me to call Steve or Stephen?
Either one's fine.
Okay, so Steve and I met online in a progressive Christian blog site called Crossleft. Steve is an AI and digital strategist. He founded Humanservices.ai, and I guess you currently work in Amplify.
I've there's a group in Southern California I'm doing some work with, yes.
Okay,
In
okay,
addition to my company, yep.
okay. And you've worked with, I guess, federal, state, and local governments in responsible AI adoption. And you just recently had a book of poetry published called Cosmologically Speaking.
That's right.
So today we'll be talking about cross-left your work as a digital and AI strategist, and we'll be talking about your new book of poetry. So thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to let you know, even I was mentioning this before we started, but um, it's nice to even though we've known each other online for 20 years or so, this is the first time we're talking. So it's
Yeah.
yeah. I think
Isn't
the
that
internet
something
gives
in
you this.
today's world, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm very happy to be talking. Does it feel weird to be?
No, it feels good. It's great. I mean, I think there was a period of time where we were doing cross left where it was intense online
Yeah,
discussion and blogging or whatever, but but I've been following you since and the artwork and I've just been super impressed. So it is great to be actually talking face to face in the modern world on Zoom.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm very happy to be talking to you. So thank you and
Great.
stuff.
Me
So
too.
okay, yeah. Let me start with my first question. Since we're mentioning cross left, how did you found cross left? And I guess a secondary question: what are your thoughts on the current situation with both progressive Christianity and the
Mm.
threat posed by Christian nationalism?
Oh boy. All right, well, I answered the easier one first, which is the cross left history. Um, you know, really was Ketty Esquivel's initial idea
Oh,
to to do something around progressive Christianity, and this was around the time of the Gulf War,
yeah,
and I think there was some general disappointment in progressive faith circles broadly around preemptive war
yeah,
as not being aligned um, to faith values and certainly Christian values, and so but what we were hearing in terms of Christian values was, sort of a anti-gay marriage agenda, anti-abortion, some of the sort of cultural conservatism,
yeah,
and that was what was the dominant framing for Christian values.
yeah,
And so, we wanted to, we knew there were others out there like us, both broadly in faith, but also across the main Christian traditions of Catholic and evangelical and mainline Protestant in the US. Um, and we wanted to create a space for all of us to find each other.
yeah.
And that's really was the impetus of building an online community called Cross Left. And we really did find each other.
Yeah. I don't
Uh,
remember how I found you guys and stuff, but I'm
well,
glad I
at
did.
one point in probably like '05, '06, '07, '08, by traffic numbers, we were probably top three or four in terms of like progressive faith destination sites. We had a pretty robust community going there for a while.
Oh,
And so you may have found us just online because we had, we had really start to build a pretty solid community.
yeah.
So that's the impetus of it. And 22 years later, we probably could use something like cross left in today's um, uh, what we're seeing today with Christian nationalism, a descent
Yeah.
into fascism in the United States and militarism that's associated with that, that there are still progressive faith voices that are out there, um, I would say leading movements and building movements
Yeah.
um,
Are you
but
as in
but the situation is arguably considerably worse than
yeah.
maybe even what we faced, a couple decades ago.
Are you still as in touch with a lot of progressive Christians as you were 20 years ago, or are you, I guess, more local now?
I for a while I did another activism platform. And for 5.5 years, I worked for the American Friends Service Committee. So I work with the
Oh,
Quakers
okay.
directly. And so that really what I mean, the AFSC is over 100 years old. They
Yeah.
won the Nobel Peace Prize in 48 for the post-World War II peace building work. They were in the first camps in Palestine when Palestinians were pushed off the land. They are still there witnessing, bearing witness. Um, my boss at the AFC, the general secretary, was head of the Friends School in Ramallah.
Uh,
And did not spend time in Israel or Palestine, but spent time in Jordan with our Palestinian and Israeli teams while
oh,
I was
wow.
there. And so got a little bit, not quite firsthand, but close people who were subject to oppression and people who were fighting oppression in Israel. Got a firsthand account from them about where we're at. In fact, my first summer on that job, one of our staff from the Palestinian from Gaza was killed.
Oh,
He was part of our peace building program in Gaza. So some of what's happening now, obviously is reminiscent. I have friends both in Gaza and the West Bank, friends in Israel, um, on both sides in Israel, if there is another side. And
yeah.
um, and so that's how a lot of my progressive faith commitments played out. I think just more generally, I've stayed in the nonprofit sector my whole life, and so I'm
Yeah.
um, you know, doing things around tech and social impact, and that's sort of always been where I've played.
Yeah. I'm just kind of curious. How did you become progressive Christian? What was the influences on that?
Well, um, I grew up Episcopalian, but I was baptized Catholic, and my dad was evangelical. So I had a touch points with all three of those traditions in a U.S. context
Yeah.
throughout my childhood. I think
Yeah.
in college I sort of walked away from all of it because my dad was feeding me sort of these evangelical
Yeah.
books that like from Josh McDowell that was claiming that the earth was 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
And how could you believe in Jesus if you don't believe this part of the Bible? And it was just sort of like, well, that's ridiculous. We know the earth isn't 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
And so I walked away for a while, and then I was in AmeriCorps in West Philly, about a mile from where I live today in Philly. And I had a couple incidents on at the school involving guns.
Oh,
And at one point uh there was a situation where a kid had a gun in high school. It was a K to 12 school, K to 12 public school.
oh,
And the kid had a gun. The school police were chasing after him, and I'm like, right before school starts, so I'm trying to get 800 elementary and middle school kids away from the gun.
yeah.
Um, and I had started a partnership with a sort of storefront church, an evangelical plant church.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the ministers, a young black minister, and we became really good friends. Consider him like a lifelong mentor and friend, Pastor Sean McKnight.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this incident about the gun on the playground, and we were just looking out at the playground, a week or two later, and he sort of looked into me and said, "You would have taken a bullet for one of those kids."
Yeah.
And I had not really processed what like that at that level.
Yeah.
And then I had, that was like part of a series of events, including my grandfather passing away, that sort of brought me back into Christianity, into the church. I went to the Episcopal Church, which I consider home, shortly thereafter, and the minister was preaching about poverty and homelessness and homophobia, and it was
Yeah.
so much more meaningful, inspiring, uplifting, aligned than sort of my staid Episcopalianism in the suburbs or,
Yeah.
what I was hearing in the evangelical church at the time. So, it just sort of brought me back in.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I don't know if you know, but Cross Left really helped me. I
Say
just
more.
yeah, it helped me with. I left the new Asian American Evangelical Church. I was there for 8 years. I got into some kind of nasty conflicts where like, they were telling me I'm not a true Christian, or
Mm,
the normal evangelical stuff. And
yeah,
I
right.
started dating my wife, who was an agnostic, and so that sort of sparked the break and stuff. But
Hmm.
uh, Cross Left really was a foundation to keep me, hopeful, I guess.
Yeah,
So
right.
thank you for
Yeah.
that.
No, thank you. It was
Yeah.
it was a really worthwhile community for sure,
Yeah.
for a
Okay.
lot of reasons.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, let me ask my next question then.
Sure.
Um, you're an AI and digital strategist, right? Now, a lot of us are scared of AI and stuff.
Yeah.
Should we be scared of AI? And I guess a secondary question, can AI be used to help with social justice issues?
Yeah. It's a great set of questions. I mean, I think there are real concerns around AI, and people, I think, are rightfully have some hesitation. There's been you know, some talk about when we get to AGI, what does that mean for humanity?
Yeah.
To be honest, like I'm involved in implementing AI in a social impact context where really it's the concerns are much more practical right now. It's
Yeah.
efficient, how do I get more efficient? How can AI help my fundraising? Um, you know, these are really just sort of practical concerns, but that doesn't mean that the community-based organizations, nonprofits, and government don't have those concerns.
Yeah.
What I often say to people is that definitely do the work in thinking about the ethical and responsible use of AI. I was on the Partnership on AI's uh, global task force on inclusive AI. So how to develop AI with affected or disaffected communities, marginalized communities. And so I'm really attuned to those issues. And it shouldn't pause you from engaging because when you engage, that's when you implement the ethical framework, right? You start to learn and have a comfort level about just establish a comfort level really about what do I feel good about and what do I not want to do. And I think that that's what I'm seeing is that that's actually shifting. So
Oh,
as people get more involved, like with
yeah.
AI, then things that they thought were unacceptable, they find, oh no, that's not such a big deal.
Oh,
I'll just give you an example there. Some people would say, don't let AI write a first draft. Like it's fine if it's editing. But like it's not your voice if they do a first draft of something.
yeah.
But what we're seeing now with memory is that you write or upload a few of your papers, whether they be blogs or articles or whatever, that the AI can start talking in your voice and starts to pick up. And so that first draft is actually getting better and better. And so the AI is using your work to generate your next work. And so all of a sudden you start to feel a little bit more comfortable with that as as an example, like a first draft of something.
So does it seem
Um,
like your voice is still in that first draft, even though AI is drafting that first draft, it's drafting that first draft in your voice.
that's
Is that
right.
what you're saying? Or
Yeah. Like we've doing this with nonprofits and grants. So
Mhm.
it's like, we'll upload 10 of the grants that you wrote in the last year and a half,
Yeah,
and have the AI generate the response, the first draft of the response to the RFP for funding. And it's not, it's using the content that you gave it to generate that next thing, right? And so anyway, like that's an example of like where the needle maybe is moving, and you're starting to be a little bit more comfortable with things that you weren't as comfortable with before. Um, so I just think it's just like it's a practical thing. Get into it, use it. That's where the rubber meets the road in use in terms of ethical issues. And look, if big business is, you know, using AI in some pretty significant ways, and communities, marginalized communities don't engage, there's this risk again of like a new digital divide of people being further left
yeah,
behind because they don't have the sort of productivity enhancements and the leveraging of like intelligence in a way that others have. And so I think that there is a, social justice, digital divide set of issues. I'll just say one other thing that I've used it for that I think is explicitly on social justice is that I built a boycott chatbot,
no, okay,
and it I told it to like, here are the trusted sources for where boycotts are happening, and here's some guidance about like where you can shop instead. And
yeah,
it does a really good job of advising you on, hey, should I shop here? Is there a boycott here? Give me a list of the active boycotts.
yeah, yeah,
So that like, and that's using AI to, in a social justice way, towards a social justice end of, like for example, the Target boycott, which we know has been really successful,
yeah,
um, and and the Tesla boycott, and so uh, you can start to develop really cool use cases for activism, so
Is it
I'm hopeful.
yeah, is it partially we're scared of what we don't know right now?
I think we're scared of what we don't know for sure, and we don't know where it's going, and industry doesn't exactly know where it's going either.
Yeah,
That's why you hear a lot of industry folks wanting some regulation because, um, to level a playing field because they're not entirely sure either. You hear a lot of things like about job losses and
yeah,
taking over jobs or whatever, and I'm sure some of that's going to happen. For a lot of workers, it's actually just going to enhance the job. So like you're not doing drudgery, you're doing like high human contact things, high value things as opposed to like
yeah,
the drudgery you were doing before.
yeah,
And there's always been concerns around this, like industrialization. That's the other thing. AI is a general purpose technology, just like the steam engine.
yeah,
And so it can be used in lots of different ways. But when the steam engine came onto the scene, a lot of people were worried that, people wouldn't, it would replace jobs or workers that were, building things, sewing things, or like um so I mean, in some ways I think we've got to be mindful, but I think some of these bridges we got to cross, and when we get there, we're not there yet.
yeah.
Let's engage now. Let's learn it. Let's learn what it can do, what it's good for, what it's not good for, so that we're better able to handle whatever comes at us coming down the road.
Okay. I like what you were saying about the digital divide because I mean, like right now, there's a rural urban divide where like rural areas don't have enough Wi-Fi. There's
That's
not
right.
enough, so I guess that's going to be the same issue with both another high tech AI is coming and stuff. And now we have to make sure that that digital divide doesn't get worse.
Yeah, for sure. There's also environmental concerns that I've heard,
Mhm.
um, that are some of which are valid, but the biggest environmental issue is that like the placement of data centers and then the use of electricity and water.
Yeah,
Um, just to say, like a simple prompt, like they become much more energy efficient. So
yeah,
that's not as big a deal, but it's just the assuming that there's going to be a ton of use, standing up new data centers, and they do require energy and water to run.
yeah,
So,
yeah. So
uh,
stuff like the cutting of solar and wind and the reliance and I didn't think of it this way, but just what our energy sources will become inextricably tied to AI.
absolutely, yeah, and
Okay.
that's some of the companies have made clean energy commitments, and some haven't.
Yeah.
So, in terms of like if that's important to you, you might want to choose the vendor appropriately based on their ethical commitments. So
Okay. 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 Yeah. I'm talking about an issue I know very little about and stuff. So thank you and stuff. So
yeah,
have you found fear from the people you've talked to and consulted with or more?
again, a lot of fear on, you know, there's a couple there. I work with a number of organizations that serve immigrants, for example,
Oh, okay.
and um, so personally identifiable information um, becomes in today's world with all this nonsense with ICE, like becomes a pretty big deal. And what I've told organizations that serve immigrant populations, nonprofits, and community organizations is don't collect immigration status. Just don't do it. And if a funder needs that for some reason, just tell them why and like let's have the conversation, because even if you're saving it in a Excel spreadsheet on your Microsoft account or your Google sheet on your Google account,
Yeah.
that could be subject as well, just like putting that kind of information into a large language model,
Oh,
into like a Claude or ChatGPT. But they've done a lot better. What I've said is like if you're going to put PII in, you got to make sure it's the paid version that you're doing that with, and just be careful about how much or like, try and de-identify the data, to the degree that you can, but certainly no immigration status that would be a big risk. So,
oh,
that's the biggest concern that I hear, frankly, is that I will say even much smaller organizations over the last year have made a ton of progress.
oh,
A
okay.
lot of organizations have picked up different parts of, they've made it, their staff are using Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or Olama. And by and large, we're past the early adoption phase with nonprofits, even small nonprofits, and we're on to, okay, how do I really get value out of this? I've
Mm,
played with it, I've experimented with it. How do I really, get some value?
okay. I guess it's up to creative people who think out of the box to be able to do that, right?
That's right. There's one of two categories. One is like, there's a little bit of like, you don't know what you don't know. So
Yeah.
one of the things I've done is I built a platform with my business partner, um, called iBlueprint.ai, and we have a bunch of really well done starter prompts for social impact and government, and other use cases, because it's sort of like, well, what can I actually do with this thing? And so you can look up almost any use case and like get a really good prompt that's going to then go into an LLM that you can then work with and talk to the LLM from that initial starting point that we're giving you, just for
Yeah.
the reason that you just said, is like, what is possible? What can I do with this? Right?
Yeah.
So there's the creative side. There's the other pieces. There's like, how do I automate workflows? You hear a lot about this. Like,
Yeah.
and agents can really help with workflow automation. And so this platform we have allows people to build a workflow that they can then automate sort of any process that's ornery, that's annoying, that's like, not a high value activity that a human's doing, let an agent, do it kind of
To
thing.
break out of the monotony of
Yeah. So if
yeah.
you're doing like you're spending a couple hours a day doing paperwork, let's try and find a way to get the agent to do that so that you can spend, if you're a social worker, for example, you can spend more time engaging human beings directly, right? Let somebody else. Um, there's a there's a couple of tools out there um, that like listen to a caseworker, and then
Yeah.
they fill in your case notes for you, and they like
That
uh,
actually sounds pretty good and stuff.
yeah,
It sounds like
yeah,
it cuts red tape in a way.
yeah, and that you can totally focus on the client in front of you, and you don't have to type anything in. Let
Yeah.
the AI do that, and then you can give empathetic sort of service to the human that's right in front of you, right?
Okay.
And so there's lots of really interesting use cases that are coming online for social impact in AI.
Okay. I guess would that help small businesses too? I
Oh
guess.
yeah, I mean small businesses for sure. Like we're developing a whole set of like marketing and sales prompts to help marketers, help salespeople, help um, and anything on the on the operations side around automating workflows.
Yeah.
Operation folks, that's they spend a lot of time in those workflows. So definitely small business productivity enhancements for sure.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, since we're going in that direction anyway, can you tell me about Humanservices.ai and I guess your company Amplify?
Yeah. So Humanservices.ai is the consultancy I've stood up to do social impact AI work. And
Yeah.
so I'm out sort of either building AI tools or building strategies to use AI tools or building business plans, sometimes helping with fundraising around AI and social impact. One, there's a couple interesting clients. One in particular, I worked for Code for America and did a project where we did an assessment of state government and their use of AI and how ready they were for using AI.
Yeah.
And then did a big online report that honestly a lot of states have used to benchmark themselves and to figure out what they should be doing.
Oh,
But that's an example of the kind of work I'm doing. I also have a partnership with a group called Social Finance, big nonprofit that does a lot of impact investment stuff.
yeah.
We have a AI innovation and learning lab hub for government agencies where we're
Oh,
giving them training, we're doing AI building tools, this prompt library I was telling you about. So that's humanservices.ai. The sort of offshoot of that is this iBlueprint.ai platform that has sort of that we've started to develop, and so I'm working on that platform. And then Amplify is in um, Los Angeles. They work on public benefits access,
oh,
and they have a screener web-based product that allows you to screen for with just a few questions, like what public benefits are you eligible for?
oh,
And we work directly with 3 or 4 counties, including LA and Riverside in Southern California. And the idea of where I'm coming in is to help. We've done a couple AI experiments and got some funding from google.org um, to with a partner Nava to experiment. And so I'm I'm there really to help with innovation and also to scale what they're doing nationally. So that's like a part-time job I have with everything else that's going on.
Yeah, you sound pretty busy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
but
got two kids that are 12 and 15, so I actually spend most of my time taxiing kids around, which is why I was late today. It was more taxiing.
yeah, but you know,
Yeah,
that sounds very beneficial because like I heard that government services, there's a lot of government benefits that never get used because people don't know and
that's
stuff,
right.
right? And
That's right.
I think one of the things that worries me is the fact that there's so much anti-government feeling. But I
Yeah,
think a lot of it is just that people just don't know what the government offers to them and stuff. So
that's
my
absolutely
dad's
right.
in TRICARE and stuff. I have a difficult time going through their website trying to figure out what are things that are helpful for my dad as a veteran and stuff. And I figure something like that would tame the confusion surrounding,
Absolutely.
I mean, is that basically your goal?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That, I read a book a couple years ago from this MIT professor who was trying to help her brother who had had an accident in California, a more benefit-rich state. And, her book was about just how confusing it was to navigate all these different programs, different eligibility and cutoffs, and so really, like we have this screener, but one of the things we're experimenting with is agents that would automate filling out benefit applications. Would say, okay,
Yeah,
we think from the screener, we think you're eligible for this, this, and this. Would you like us to apply for you? And then just go out and do it.
yeah, yeah,
So, so that's the idea was to see
mm,
how we can use AI also to how we can use AI to make better recommendations. And you
yeah,
are absolutely right, Angelo, that like for a program like WIC, um, um, which is, pregnant mothers and young children, new mothers,
yeah,
that that uptake for that program is only around 50% nationally.
yeah,
SNAP, which is food stamps, is like about 75% nationally. So like there are these gaps in access from people who are eligible, who could use the benefit, and then what the actual uptake is in the benefit. And so part of what we're out doing in the benefits access space, there's a number of organizations working on this stuff, is closing that gap.
yeah,
If you're eligible, let's get you on and get you helped.
yeah, yeah. Because I've gone through a little bit where I would call and then I'd be left on hold.
Oh
And
yeah.
then and then I would talk to somebody. They tell me to talk to somebody else at a different agency, so like
Yeah.
I would talk to TRICARE, then they tell me to talk to the Veterans Administration and this and that. I appreciate, I appreciate the benefits they're out there. It's just confusing to try to figure out how to access it and stuff.
Very
So
confusing, very,
yeah,
and that's, part of what we're trying to do is like give us a few data points and we know the benefit rules. We'll tell you what you're likely eligible for. And we also in the software, we say, here's what we think the dollar amount is in terms of the value of the benefit to you. So you're going in sort of eyes wide open about like, well, what can I expect to gain from this particular benefit program?
okay, okay. Well, good luck with that and stuff.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
yeah, yeah. We have 3 minutes left for this first meeting and stuff. I wanted to ask one last thing, but I don't know if you have time in three
Yeah,
minutes to
sure.
answer it. You know, for the so is there a difference between how red states and blue states implement things and stuff? I mean, are you finding that red states are hostile to it, or are they just as receptive to AI of streamlining bureaucracy as I'm
Yeah.
saying this out of ignorance. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, you know, what I've experienced, because I worked at a benefits access organization even before this for a few years, what I've experienced is that, yes, there are concerns, for example, about fraud in these programs and things like that. But really, like, it's two sides of the same coin. Like, getting people who deserve the benefit benefited and making sure that people that aren't eligible don't get it. Like it's pretty much two sides of the same coin. And so, on some level, this just becomes like a public administration problem of,
Uh,
and I think most state and county and local employees that I engage with, they don't get involved in sort of like the political discourse on benefits, good, bad, or otherwise.
yeah,
They're really just trying to administer the program in a decent way. And so it's not as different as you would think. Now, there are differences in like benefit amounts the state legislatures and governors have passed.
yeah,
For
yeah,
sure, there's certainly some states that have more rich public benefits than others. But when it comes to some of the stuff we're talking about, um, and I would say same thing on AI. AI is like one of like some of the leading states are New Jersey and Pennsylvania, but also Utah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
and some of the states that are behind are places like Missouri. But there's also a couple blue states that maybe are behind. So it's a
Oh,
mix.
okay. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm curious, in the past maybe 10, 15 years, autocratic regimes and extreme right-wing groups have been using social media to promote conspiracy theories and to try to undermine various democracies around the world. Can high tech, I guess AI, be used to defend democracy? And I think you touched upon this earlier, but can it also be used to create a more equitable world? You mentioned a little bit about it
Yeah,
last part in the last
yeah,
question, but
yeah, yeah.
extrapolate more.
Um, well, I think like anything, it's like value neutral in some ways. It's sort of how you use it. I am sure there are going to be those who are already using AI for ill, to enhance, some of that disinformation. Um, you know, if you're still on X, I'm not, but if you are, like, I'm imagining that there's lots of AI driven bot traffic that, continues to feed that, both feed the rancor and, feed the disinformation at the same time. I think AI can be used to confront some of that for sure. There's an increasingly a conversation about how does AI like work in democracy and sort of like what role does it have? And I think that that's an evolving conversation. I do think that you can, and there are social media platforms that, use AI to find bot traffic and eliminate it. Um, and so, I think that there's some conversation too about like that the AI can be trained on all that content though. And so if the AI is trained on data that is has bias in it, has some of this rancor in it, like how do we make sure that we're using it in a debiased way, and how do we debias it? So,
Yeah,
um, I think that these are things that people have to think about, consider. There are ways to debias an AI for sure,
yeah,
to debias an LLM. Um, it becomes important when you have some of the companies that we know are involved. Like, for example, Elon Musk this last week, shifted some of the parameters in his AI, in this Grok, to be more conservative. I mean,
I didn't
that's
know that. Okay.
yeah. So, because it was giving answers that maybe Elon Musk didn't like. So, um, so it's definitely something to be paying attention to. Uh, Right now, it's probably a net negative, but I think people of goodwill have to turn it into a net positive.
Okay. Yeah. Sort of like how in 10 years ago or 15 years ago, Facebook helped helped activists in the Arab Spring. But then 20, 15 years, 10 years later, like in the Philippines, various fake Facebook accounts helped Duterte, gain
Yeah,
power in the Philippines and stuff. So it's both a positive and a negative, but yeah,
that's
I don't
absolutely right.
know.
That's
I don't
absolutely
know
right.
what that.
No, I mean, the Arab Spring and the Green Revolution in Iran had a big Facebook and Twitter
Yeah,
like presence that was fueling some of the connectivity in those social movements. And at the same time, we've sort of been blind to like what we went in blind to social media. There
yeah,
weren't all these conversations about ethical social media, responsible social media. That's not true in AI. Like we're having all the conversations up front, which is a good thing.
yeah.
Uh, we're
Is
being
it
much
the,
more
the
mindful.
lessons we learned from social media are not being applied to now that we see the both the good and the bad in social media? We're applying those the questions we should have asked about social media, where we have the benefit of the past experience to be able to ask those questions now of AI.
I think that's right. Yeah. I mean, I think that in fact, I was in a discussion last summer, and someone said, "Well, this AI is like social media, and that we're just blindly going into this." And I challenged that. I said, "Well, we're not blind. Like, uh, there's so many organizations and conversations happening around ethical and responsible AI. Um, the industry is interested in those conversations. They want some regulation. It's pretty different than what we like. We just sort of like skipped into social media and said, "Hey, this is great. We're connected with all our high school friends on Facebook, and maybe we can use this for activism." And I'm like, I started an activist group or a progressive Christian group, which I did start. It's pretty big on Facebook. Like, um, you know and like all the downsides, like there wasn't really much of any conversation that I remember about that. So we're it's much more eyes wide open. I think we learned our lesson with social media.
Okay, okay, okay. Is part of the fear also? I mean, you mentioned Elon Musk and X, right?
Yeah.
Uh, in okay, I don't know how to ask this question, but in newspapers, we have always relied on benevolent owners to give journalists the freedom to do strong journalism. So I forget her name, Martha Graham in the Washington
Yeah,
Post.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, Graham and stuff. But now we've got Elon, what's his name, Jeff Bezos in the Washington Post. In the beginning, he did give room for journalists to do their work, but now there's an exodus of an editorial cartoonist left, and several journalists have left because now there's a feeling that Bezos, in order to curry favor with Trump, is sort of slanting the Washington Post in a way in a direction where several journalists feel they no longer have the room to do hard hitting reporting and stuff. Um, is that a similar fear with AI? Is that who owns AI determines the ethical considerations that are applied to AI? Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, oh yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And you are rightly calling out, when oligarchy owns the media, um, there has been, there's obviously over the last 30, 40 years been a consolidation of media.
yeah,
Local news, which may have been independent, has either not independent or not around because the revenue model's been upended. And so what we're left with is, not just like, Washington Post is a great example, but look at what happened with 60 Minutes,
yeah,
what's happening with
yeah,
CBS. Like, there's all kinds of examples for this. I think who owns the AI is an important consideration, and what their ethical commitments are, what their commitments to openness are. The one difference here with media is that there are a number of open source tools. And so there are a number of open source small language models, excuse me, large language models. Um, it's a competitive landscape. You've got entrants from China, both on the open source and closed source. Um, there's um, a real mix of things that if you wanted to like do some of this yourself, or your organization wanted to do it yourself, or you wanted to use an open source model, you can do that, right? And so there are some like architectural alternatives. And honestly, there's some differences. Like, I don't think I would use Grok, especially after the news that I heard this week. But I
Yeah.
feel pretty comfortable with Anthropic, sort of knowing where they're at as a company. ChatGPT and OpenAI have been hit on the head on some things, rightfully so. But at the end of the day, they made a decision for the nonprofit to own the AI piece
Yeah.
of this. And so, um, you know, that to me signals some good things about where that's headed. Same thing with Google and Gemini.
Yeah.
So, you know, but there are alternatives. There are open source alternatives, and that helps balance things out a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm asking this out of ignorance. I don't know and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just because I'm a editorial cartoonist, I see the effects of um, ownership
Oh, yeah.
in journalism and stuff. So that's why I'm asking and stuff.
It's been rough. I mean, it's obviously gotten rough with Trump
Yeah.
leaning on, and honestly, frankly, just capitulation of some of these companies
Yeah.
before even like, taking it to trial or something like that, like
Yeah.
no, there's been a real reticence to fight back, even
Yeah.
with organizations that have plenty of resources to fight back, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that.
I mean, look at the
But
universities. I mean, Harvard's fighting back, but like some of the other Ivies, like Columbia and Penn, just completely capitulated
yeah.
without even, trying to challenge, So,
Yeah. I have a feeling that there's a saying that individuals tend to be more moral than groups and stuff because
yeah,
I have a feeling that's going to play out again now and stuff.
that's a good
So,
point. That's a good
uh,
point.
but yeah, well, we'll see and stuff. It's one of those things where I hope I'm wrong, but so far I haven't been, and I don't feel good about it. I don't want to be right. Yeah. So,
I
okay.
understand. I understand what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there. Let me ask about your book of poetry.
Yeah.
Tell me about Cosmologically Speaking. How did that come about? And then afterwards, would you give us the honor of reciting a few of your poems?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks for sharing about the book. So I um interestingly enough, this came in like in some ways in the first Trump administration. I was
Oh,
working at the American Friends Service Committee in the early part of that, and we were really heavily involved in a lot of the activism, and it was a pretty, stressful time this first time around. It's even more stressful now, but um, in order to disconnect a little bit, at the end of the day, I started listening to or watching astrophysics documentaries.
oh, okay.
And
Okay.
what that allowed from a mental or emotional place was to remind me of how small all of this is.
Yeah.
This point in time that we're in. It may be big to me. It is big. I'm not saying it's not big, but like in in the universe time, this is like half a second of time.
Yeah.
And we're on this planet in this galaxy, but there's 2 trillion galaxies in the sort of known universe. Each of them have 100 to 400 billion stars. Each of them have 2 or 3 planets on average around them. Like, we're small,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And I just needed to take myself out of this and give myself that broader context. And I found it very comforting to um, think about the current situation in that context. And then that led me though to, you know, having some other thoughts. I don't know if they're deeper thoughts or not, but other thoughts
Yeah.
around, well, okay, well, what does this mean? Um, we talked about our progressive Christianity before, but even in reference to some of the progressive faith stuff, how does how does some of this relate to that, or in some cases maybe doesn't? And so do I have to start making some adjustments to how I'm perceiving faith and my faith based on sort of what I'm learning? And honestly, I've had to make some adjustments. And so anyway, that's where it came from. And I just
Mm.
in the last there's a couple poems written before that time, but then just in the last couple years, based on that, I just a whole bunch of poetry just sort of flowed out.
Oh,
And I was like, all right, well, let's see if I can, put this in a book. But that's where Cosmologically Speaking comes from, is that really almost all the poems are in and around the universe and our place in the universe and
yeah, yeah,
um, maybe doing some playing around with concepts and words in that.
yeah.
So, yeah.
That sounds cool. That sounds
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Would you mind reciting a few or?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I just happen to have the book here ready to
Oh,
go.
actually, where can
Yeah.
you buy it? Where can you buy the
You
book?
can if you can buy it on Amazon for sure, but if you prefer and to support a local bookstore, which I would encourage, you can go to bookshop.org and find it there and pick a local bookstore, independent bookstore, and
Oh,
support that local bookstore.
okay.
Uh, uh, all right, well, I'll read this first one here is called oh, by the way, if the poetry isn't any good, there's lots of amazing pictures from the two space telescopes, and they're in full color in both the hardcover and softcover.
Oh, okay.
I paid a little extra to do that and because I just wanted that the sense of the universe in and all the things that are there in the book. But anyway, this first one I'll read is called Channeling the Consciousness of the Universe. Those microtubules in millions of firing neurons in every human's brain, channeling the consciousness of the universe, created of the cosmos's primary elements, built to be the reflection in uncommon interjection, sentience, bringing forth meaning and connection against the empty vastness, the universe reflecting upon itself, learning about its own mysteries, projected across unimaginable distances, and yet virtually unexamined. My consciousness stands for love, for peace, enriching life on earth, and contributing my goodness to the universal whole, more vital than any black hole. Do you want to call it God? Do you want to call it science? Do you want to call it philosophy? No matter the pathway, we discover the same cosmic awe, scraping against the unknowable until it relents with the next glimpse. Someday, when you are ready, you will know all of its wonder.
Oh, hey,
Yeah, thank you.
that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So
Yeah.
you can see like, it's a lot of like taking like something in the universe and just to say that first piece is actually from Sir Roger Penrose,
Oh,
who has a concept, who he's a Nobel
actually, I
Prize.
don't know who he is.
Yeah,
Who's
he's a
Roger?
Nobel Prize winning uh, physicist and mathematician.
Oh, okay.
And he has a concept. He gets into all kinds of different things. He
Okay.
has this concept of where consciousness comes from. He worked with an anesthesiologist, um, someone who's got a PhD in that, and um, their concept was that there are these microtubules in our brain in a part of the neuron, and his thought was that perhaps consciousness is
Oh, those
coming
micro.
coming
Okay.
from that part of the brain, collectively working. And I must confess, I don't understand exactly the concept, but like that's where that initial line comes from, is that, and then does that then channel some sort of collective consciousness? Like, how does that manifest is sort of what that was. Um, let's see. I'll do one more here. Time emergent. Time flies. If we only knew how true the old adage is about the arrow of time. Is time fundamental? The forward direction as well? Time stops for me, traveling at the speed of light. If we stopped expanding, stopped running to the next meeting, seeking the next dopamine hit, could we slow time down? What if we contracted, only focused on the important, ignored the urgent? Would our time then be enough? When our time runs out, is that all there is? All our sentience will ever know? Or is time a figment? Will we instead carry on in some other formulation, unbothered and unbounded by the flow of time?
Mm.
So you can
Hey,
see where I'm you see
that's pretty good too.
where my brain has been on some of this stuff,
I'm curious, does your brain kind of, it sounds like you using both your left and your right portion of your brains. You have a creative side in your poetry, but there's also a strong scientific side that I'm finding in you and stuff. Are you like the intersection between, because it's science, but there's also do you like that intersection of science and spirituality?
I do because I like they've been so separate in our thinking and in our world. And
Okay.
I I don't I don't know that they should be. I my own feeling about um uh as you sort of get into astrophysics more and more is that like, well, there's actually so much that we don't know that there's it's almost too vast a thing for humans to comprehend.
Yeah.
There's still a place for me, there's still a place for God in all of that. There's
Yeah.
still a place for that to inspire awe, to
Yeah.
realize that there's something so much bigger happening that like I'm only getting as a human on Earth like this little sliver of.
Yeah.
Um, and so you can call it whatever you want, but there's obviously a number of things that are much bigger than our existence here. But I really do think that for me it all relatively fits together.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of humility but you can be humble, but also realize your importance in the universe and stuff. There's a sense of, I don't know if that's because in both of the poems, you putting yourself in the vastness of the universe is very humbling.
oh yeah, I mean, and so it has the that extra added benefit, right? That like there's there's only so much I'm going to be able to do with my life. And
Yeah.
yes, like you heard, I want to be doing good. I don't want to spend a minute of my life doing something bad, like or extractive or whatever. But like, uh, but no matter what, it's going to go on.
No. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
in some ways, like for us in this space, it all matters tremendously. But in the biggest scheme of things, the good and the bad might not matter nearly as much. And so what does that mean to you personally in your life? Well, then it is a degree of humbleness that of or humility that like I'm gonna give it my all here in this life, but I know that it's, I just have this little glimpse into what's happening in the big picture of things. And so I'm, you know, at the same time, part of what I'm also saying though is like we are giving meaning to the universe. Sentient beings, like we're all made up of star stuff. We're all made up
Yeah.
of atoms from and compounds that were built in stars, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so um we really are sort of reflecting on existence, but made up of existence. Too often we pull ourselves out of that, but we actually are that.
Yeah.
And so we're looking upon ourselves, right? And that's an interesting. it leads you to some interesting places about sort of like, well, actually, I do fit in this. I am, when I die, I will come back in a different sort of composition. Like
Yeah.
the atoms in me will be still here and they will be in some other manifestation.
Yeah.
Um, what you believe about afterlife and all that, that's another for another day maybe, but like your actual physical essence will manifest
In
in
a
different
different way.
ways.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. That's kind of Buddhist in a way, right?
Oh yeah, and I should say that I have been part of my journey has been to be a little bit more Christian Buddhist, and I've listened to a
Oh,
lot of Thich Nhat Hanh in addition to the astrophysics and read some of his books, and that's led me down to in fact, there's a poem in here, Dharma, from his
oh, yeah,
Dharma
yeah. If you
books.
want to read it, yeah, go ahead.
I have to find it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, but like that comes from him. That comes from Thich Nhat Hanh.
Oh, okay. Do you know Merton, Thomas Merton?
Yes. Yeah, I think I read something to his in the last year or
The
so.
Seven Mountain something. I forgot what it's
Yeah.
called. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, this actually mentions him.
Oh, okay.
So here, this is called Dharma. Timeless wisdom of the universe, of the ages of human existence, pours forth from our humble teacher. Quietly, so unlike the preacher who boisterously waxes absolute, failing to plow our fallow hearts, forgetting a collective need so acute, for clearing the air, a recompense for the pungent words that prosecute, that promoted every evil, disguising the word for worldly pursuit. Our kind meditative Thay encourages us to focus on today. Our current reality can be heaven if we only drop the past, which is leaden with the burdens we need no longer carry, and a future that you need not marry. Rather, breathe in the present moment, breathe out the latest predicament, let go of yearning for accomplishment, center on our Mother Earth so verdant, love now with stoic abandonment. So that really was about Thich Nhat
Oh,
Hanh.
oh.
Yeah.
Hey, that's pretty good. I notice in your in your poems, they funnel from the universal to the specific.
Yeah.
Is that a sort of framework for your poetry?
It's yes, because it's taking this like universal or in fact of the universe concept, and then how do I make sense of that in my life, or how might we make sense of it in our and so that is a sort of common flow. Thanks for calling that out. I don't know if I really ever really
Oh
thought
no,
about it.
I'm not calling. I know
Yeah,
set in the three poems and stuff.
yeah,
I don't know if that's
yeah.
a reoccurring theme or not and
I
stuff.
think so. I think so. I mean, I think it's like take this concept, do something with it. What's it mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. How long does it take to write your poetry? How long did it take to do this book?
Yeah,
Because you said the first Trump administration to now, that's 8 years, right?
I really in earnest it was about 18 months. I had a couple that I had written 20 years ago that are in there. Um, but it was really uh, it took a couple years of astrophysics and Thich Nhat Hanh, and then started writing poetry after a few years of letting that all sink in.
Uh,
And barely understand some of the astrophysics and
yeah, yeah,
barely
yeah.
understand what some of the Buddhist concepts and precepts. Once I got that, then I could do something with it from a poetry perspective.
Oh, okay, okay. So it was sort of a struggle. First, you had to understand the concepts, and after actually, is that the right way of saying it? Am I putting words in your
Well,
mouth?
well, I wasn't thinking about writing a book of poetry. It just came out once I had gotten some of that conceptual basis. I have no idea why, but then I just started writing
Uh,
poetry about it,
oh no,
like
no, no, that's great and
yeah,
stuff. That's
yeah.
great.
It
Yeah,
just sort
okay.
of it emerged in me after I had some basis of understanding of those two worlds. And actually Buddhism and some of what we in cosmology and astrophysics, like talk about alignment. There's some real alignment. That what I was just saying about going back to the earth and like, my atoms have some other manifestation. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about that all the time, that like,
Oh,
where were you before you were born? Where will you be after? You're still here. Um,
yeah.
and uh and so anyway, that they're actually quite connected in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think the only reason I'm asking about how long it took is it sounds like you're going through deep thoughts, right? And I'm thinking like you're gonna if you going through deep thoughts takes a while, you know.
That's true. That's true. I mean, give yourself you sort of come in and out of a few of these concepts that are in here. I don't know if you picked up on it, but there was also in that poem a um, calling out essentially evangelical Christianity in that, and doing a comparison of Thich Nhat Hanh to the evangelical preacher. And so that is very much of my experience in my past, that I was like calling forward, is how much peace I've gotten from sort of the Buddhist teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh versus just the rancor and the activeness of some of what I heard in my dad's evangelical church, like night and day. I mean, the more meditative Episcopalian church is obviously much, or the Quaker meeting is one of silence, right, initially, and so much more aligned to this kind of Buddhism, than evangelical Christianity. And so I did give a little couple digs in
No, no,
there.
no, no. I understand that because
Yeah.
I went through. I'm liberal, but I used to have close conservative Christian friends, and so I understand some of the. I don't think I've really worked out some of the hurt feelings I had from those conflicts and stuff because they used to be close friends, and even now, 15, 20 years later, I still haven't fully worked it out and stuff. So I understand how your evangelical background has an effect on you now and stuff. Am I
Yeah,
right or am I wrong?
totally. I mean, I think any strong adherent to a theology or ideological point of view that puts the theology or ideology above the human,
Yeah,
can be really difficult to even understand in your relation with someone who you've been close with, right?
yeah,
Well, wait a second. Like, I'm not telling you not to believe that. I may offer, a gentle challenge every now and then about, but like, why is that adhering to that more important than the relationship? And I
yeah,
think though, like I think many of us have experienced
yeah,
that when someone gets hyper committed to um, political ideology or some more fundamentalist theology.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. I think for me, I saw very kind people do cruel things to people who don't conform into their religious ideas of what a good Christian or a good person should be and stuff. And it was painful to see these nice people do cruel things and stuff. So
yeah, and in the Christian context, it's often so not aligned with the teachings of Jesus that like it's just sort of hard to stomach on some level, um the the adhering to something that keeps people away, that when sort of like, Jesus spent his time with, prostitutes and sinners and lepers and like, those who society had discarded, not for you to turn around and then discard people, like based on whatever you think Jesus, wants us to believe or think or feel. It is it's a really odd situation sometimes to be in, at least I'm not sure what it's like in other fundamentalist faith, but certainly in Christianity, it's like, well, wait a second, like that's you're being fundamental. Like Jesus didn't even say that.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's not the way he lived his life. So what are you doing?
yeah. Okay. Well,
So
we have around 5 minutes and 30 seconds left. I want you to give a plug on your book. Why, tell me why should I, or just a person, what's the recommendation on buying your book?
yeah, I mean, you got a chance to hear a couple today. There's I think
Well, if you
50
want to read one more in 5 minutes, that's okay.
there's 50 some odd poems in here, and like I said, there's lots of really amazing pictures from both of the space telescopes.
But the
Um,
poems sound pretty good too. So I think
yeah,
the poems in and of themselves are a good recommendation.
sure. I'll give you a quick one here. This is called Riding the Gravitational Wave.
Okay.
Stretching space, the density of both of us, the most extreme cosmic event, our merger as one, spinning off tremendous energy, waves of oxytocin rippling in the ripples of our brain, like a stone tossed into the placid lake. Our whispers of love spread through the void of a meaningless existence, surfing space-time, bending the cosmos, announcing our love, even when we are no more, projecting yet accessing the far reaches, all will know, stirring vibrations of superluminous ardor. That's more of a love poem.
Pretty good. Thank you. Thank you very much and stuff.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well,
So
thank you and
there's
stuff.
some variance in there is what I'm saying. It's still a concept of gravitational waves, which just to say that like when Einstein was the person who came up with this concept, and we have now measured it to be true, that when like two black holes come together, or some other like a supernova happens, that like there are waves of gravity that then come out from that, and we can actually detect it. And so it's a little bit of space-time like shrinking and growing and shrinking and growing.
Um,
So the fabric of space is sort of doing that. So that's where that's again concept, and then sort of then turns that into oddly a bit of a love poem.
oh yeah, yeah. I think that's pretty cool. Thank you
Yeah.
very much and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm just checking the time here. You got 3 minutes left. If you look in the right corner, it'll tell you the time.
Yes, I see
We
that.
got 3 minutes left and stuff. So okay. Well, thank you very much and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, yeah, like I said, it's wonderful to talk to you again after 20 years of you being seeing you online and stuff. But thank you for your work too. I know a lot of people are scared of AI, but it seems like you're doing a lot of good in making sure AI serves us and not
Yes.
having us serve AI and stuff.
That's
That's
the
my
goal, man. That's the
yeah.
goal. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and thank you, Angelo, for having me. Like this has been a wonderful conversation. Um, I really appreciate your really thoughtful questions. It was a great opportunity to share some of my thinking about the world stuff. And it's good to be connected in this way. You're right, after 20 years or so. So,
Yeah, it's the first time we're actually talking.
yeah, it's great. Let's do it again sometime.
Oh yeah, 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 sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure. Thank you.